have anybody coming in late because I don't have the video able to rewind. No sound? That can't be possible. No, you should be able to hear me. You guys can't hear me? Sound is low. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. I mean, I'm only using the laptop speakers. Sound is good. I could hear you. If it's low, turn up your volume because everybody else is saying theirs is fine. And this is the best I could do because the rumors are true. I am in Jamaica, which is really close to Guantanamo Bay. Never really thought of that way until just now, just this moment. Yeah. Well, anyway, my name is Phil Godlewski, and I have not been live in over a week. And when that happens, people generally freak out, and that is exactly what's been happening for the last several days, and maybe even more than a week. So I apologize for my absence. Let me just make a couple of changes here real quick. Maybe I can mess with the audio just a little bit. While I'm doing this, you guys may hear a little bit of background noise. I guess we got some stuff going on in the other room of our suite. So just try to kind of ignore that the best that you could. I'm making do with what I have here. It's not necessarily an ideal situation, going live from another country. I'm obviously relying on their Wi-Fi and relying on their services, which I'm 100% not used to. So let's try to bear with me tonight and try to get through this. And, we'll get back into our regular digs, so to speak, once we get back. But for those of you that don't know, Carrie and I have our 1-year anniversary coming up in the next couple days. And this is where we went for our anniversary this year, Jamaica. So Carrie's never been to Jamaica. I was only in Jamaica one day about 20 years ago. So it's, kind of our first time for the most part. That's also why, well, there's a couple of reasons why I've been absent for the last week or two, which we'll get into here in a second. But one of the reasons is because I've been spending a lot of time with Carrie around our 1-year anniversary. So I know that's not to everybody's liking because you guys would like to see me go live absolutely every day. It's just not really feasible. There are certain weeks and certain months out of the year that my personal life is just crazy. I have a lot of stuff going on with the kids, both my boys and Carrie's girls. And of course, we have a lot going on, just me and Carrie as well. So thank you for all the happy anniversaries. I appreciate that. It's actually June 4th, so in 2 days. But we've been celebrating it for like the last week. Carrie was in Pennsylvania for a little while with me and the boys. And then, after this trip, we have a couple other things planned in June as well. So thank you for your patience. It looks like nobody really left me because the numbers are through the roof again tonight. So thank you for your commitment to me. And I obviously have that same commitment to you. And we're going to get back into regular live streaming. Now that I know that I could go live from Jamaica without any kind of issues, it seems like the connection's fine, other than the audio issue, which isn't, the greatest, and the video probably isn't the greatest either. Now I know I could go live from down here, so I'll probably do another live at some point this week. Won't be before Tuesday, but sometime later in the week, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, somewhere in there. We'll see what we can do. So Before we get started here, we got a lot to talk about, obviously, and I'm going to hold a Q&A after I talk for about a half an hour. I want to set some things straight and also get everybody on the same page with what's been happening over the last week or two. Everybody was freaking out last week, and I think it's time we talk about that, obviously. And I'll tell you where we're headed. I'll tell you how we got here, and I'll also tell you what to expect next. But before we do that, why don't you guys tell me where you're from? I'm obviously in Jamaica, man. Tomorrow we go to Dunn's River Falls, and we have this rafting thing. We're going to check out a couple what they call lagoons, where they have caves and stuff. It's going to be cool. Where are you guys at? Carson, Washington, Sotaville, Oregon, Waterloo, Iowa, Greece, near Italy, Colorado, Connecticut, Fruitland, Idaho, Topeka, Kansas, Sweden, Ocala, Florida, Brisbane, Australia, Kleiman, Wisconsin, Tecumseh, Michigan, Rochester, Green Valley, Alabama, Holland, Massachusetts, England, Brisbane, Australia, Findlay, Ohio, Wichita Falls, Texas, Bucharest, Romania, pretty cool, Victoria, Australia, Vancouver, Canada, Melbourne, Florida, thought that was another Australia, Plainview, Long Island, New York, Findlay, Ohio again, Knoxville, Tennessee, Charleston, West Virginia, Munising, Michigan, Whitefish, I guess that's a place, who really knows, Bristol, Tennessee, North Little Rock, Arkansas, Bill Clinton, Poland, motherland, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, nice. Wow, we got a global audience today. Everybody wants to know what's going on in the U.S., huh? Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, Sweden, Naples, Florida, Springville, New Jersey, Frackville, Pennsylvania. I think I played baseball down there for a little while. Confluence, Pennsylvania, Vandergrift, probably where I should be from. Right. And let's get one more. Toronto, Ontario. All right, cool. Well, welcome everybody. Big audience tonight. I didn't really anticipate a big audience because a lot of times when I go live, when I don't go live for a week or two, like I've been, sometimes it goes down, but that didn't happen at all. In fact, there's more people watching tonight than there was on my last live. So really, really cool. I appreciate your loyalty. I appreciate your commitment. And like I said, we're gonna get into some good stuff tonight that I think a lot of people want to hear. I don't necessarily know if you're gonna love it, but well, you're gonna love some stuff, but the other stuff is probably gonna annoy you, kind of like it annoys me. So let's just hop right into it, and then I'll take some questions afterwards. We'll do a live Q&A, not for a long time. Total live tonight's probably going to be about an hour and a half. I think I'll get out of here at about probably about 6:30 Eastern, somewhere around there. So we got about another hour and 10 minutes, 20 minutes, somewhere like that. And like I said, I will go live again later this week. So, all right. So Trump gets convicted of 34 felony charges. We have to start at the beginning. We can't just say, well, they prosecuted Trump and now he's a convicted felon. It's not that simple at all. Okay, so we have to really get in our mind that it's not just simply an accusation, an indictment, a trial, and then a conviction. It's not that easy, okay? You have to remember certain things, and I'm going to talk about those certain things now, and then we're going to expand on it as we go. Election fraud was committed in November of 2020. Go all the way back to the very beginning. Now, prior to November of 2020, if you remember, Donald Trump signed numerous EOs, which are executive orders. An executive order is something that the President of the United States puts into place, and it basically bypasses the other branches of government. It bypasses Congress, doesn't have to go through the House, doesn't have to go through the Senate, doesn't have to be signed into law. it's just the president's way of saying, hey, I have ultimate control of this country, and I'm going to write a document that puts something into place, some sort of policy into place. Now, there's restrictions on what you could write executive orders for and what you can't. Of course, some things like laws have to go into Congress and it has to be voted on by both houses and so forth. However, Trump signed numerous executive orders while he was in power. If you don't know about these executive orders, you really need to educate yourself on them, because everything that's happening right now revolves around your knowledge of those executive orders. Executive Order EO is what I'm going to call them going forward. EO 13818 in particular, and EO 13848 in particular. Those two executive orders you need to familiarize yourself with, because if you don't familiarize yourself with them, things are going to get confusing and frustrating and often aggravating at times, especially when you see who you believe to be president convicted of 34 felonies in a trial that seems like it was just, made out of toothpicks and toilet paper. There was not a single piece of evidence in that trial that screamed guilty, guilty, guilty. None of it. And this is why we have to put everything into context, right? So before the election fraud of November of 2020, these executive orders were put in place, and they were put in place. When they were put in place, it was kind of like, why are we talking about these particular topics? Like, what's the point of bringing something like this up in this context, at this point in time? And a lot of those executive orders had to do with election fraud. So Trump and the White Hats anticipated election fraud. I think there's no doubt about that whatsoever, because in September of 2018, almost 2 full years before the election fraud of November of 2020, Donald Trump started talking about election fraud in an executive order. Just kind of out of left field. Everyone's like, oh, well, okay, whatever. You could write an executive order, you're the president, you could do this, but he did it. And then it kind of got forgotten about. And then the election fraud happened, and then people didn't forget anymore. They started talking about it, especially people like me. I've been talking about 13848 for a long time, as you guys, I'm sure, remember. And the biggest, how do I want to say this? The most intricate, strategic, impressive, and covert operation that this world has ever seen has been in effect for the last 8 years. Probably even longer than that, but we'll just focus on those 8 years. Going back to 2016, when Trump beat Hillary, they knew that there was going to be election fraud in 2016. There's been election fraud for years. We can't do anything about it because every president that gets in the office won't allow the Department of Justice to pursue anything on election fraud. You had Obama in office for 8 years. You had Bush in office for 8 years. You had Clinton before him. So we are not able to do anything about election fraud. That's why Trump ran for president. They needed somebody that was going to blow the election fraud out of the water. Go ahead, do your election fraud the same way you've been doing it for years. That's why all these presidents keep getting elected. That's why they all get placed into office. We need a candidate that's going to blow them out of the water with votes. So Trump went toe-to-toe with election fraud in 2016. And he won anyway. Hillary was pissed. So the anticipation of more election fraud in 2020 was there. That's why those executive orders were written. Now, fast forward to November of 2020, the election fraud occurred. I do not believe that the White Hats thought they would actually have to leave the White House. before November 4th of 2020, prior to the election, they knew there was going to be election fraud. They knew what they had to do to mitigate the election fraud, not stop it, but mitigate it and catch the people who were responsible for it. They had all these things into place years before, in some cases, like EO 13848. The election fraud happened. The White Hats had to leave. Trump had to leave, obviously, the White House. That was not anticipated. No matter what anybody says, they didn't think they were leaving the White House. Trump did not want to leave the White House. And he started conversing with these other White Hats, these other military generals, these high-ranking military, the Q team, basically, and others in the military as well. But they started conversing about where to go from here. What do we do next? And they didn't have a long time to do it. So they took Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis, and they started meeting with the legislatures, and they tried to put something into place to stop this. We had Mike Pence, who could have stopped everything on January 6th, but didn't. We had the false flag operation on January 6th, where, they just tried to rush the votes through the House so that Biden could be confirmed, and they had to get everybody out of there because of the insurrection. We all know about that, right? Once they knew they had to leave the White House, they were still in the White House. Trump was still president once they realized, hey, we're going to have to get out of here, right? What do we do? So while Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood, that's when all those names started becoming really, really familiar. You had Phil Waldron, right? He was going testifying in front of all these legislators. While all that was happening, trying to prevent Biden from actually taking power, Trump and the White Hats were over on this side. Jenna Ellis, everybody over there, Trump over here, right? And the goal was to allow this cabal entity to take over with restrictions. Trump devolved the government. We're in a state of devolution. We've been in a state of devolution. We've talked about devolution on my show, and many other truthers have talked about it as well. We've been in a state of devolution since January of 2021, right before the election took place, or the inauguration took place. Trump put in a continuity of government system where there are basically two governments working side by side. One is the government that the people see, which is the Biden administration, completely destroying the country in every single way that you could possibly imagine. And then the other, legitimate president of the United States, Donald Trump, and his administration. If you think back to the initial orders of business, the initial duties of the Biden administration, Secretary Blinken would go overseas to meet with a foreign country for the first time. You know who else went on the same day Blinken went? Pompeo. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also went to meet with those foreign nations. Why would that happen? Well, because the nations are now being given a choice. Which government do you recognize? Donald Trump's government, the legitimate government, or the fraudulent government of Joe Biden? And they were told exactly everything that's going on. There was election fraud. They're trying to seize power. We have continuity of government in place. We devolved our government. We're no longer this. We're no longer that. This is how we're operating. Who do you want to side with? Pick now. And that's what happened right after Biden took office. Where I'm going with this is here. Ever since Trump decided to leave office and leave the White House, he's still been operating this country as a shadow president, as a shadow government. It's been happening ever since January of 2021 when Joe Biden was inaugurated. You remember the fake inauguration? Everything was wrong. You remember it looked like it was recorded on 2 different days. It was completely cloudy in the sky. On one day, everything was all gray and black and looked like it was stormy weather. And then other shots, clear blue sky. This is the same day, like half an hour apart. Everything looked completely weird. Everybody remembers that, right? You have 2 simultaneous governments, one illegitimate and one legitimate. The illegitimate one is the public-facing one. It's what everybody sees, right? You have this other government over here, which is actually running things and doing stuff behind the scenes. Like what, you say? Well, look at what's happening to metals. Look at what's happening to the price of precious metals. Just in the last month, we're up, what, $10 an ounce? Almost $10 an ounce? They are getting rid of the fraud in the precious metals market. They are rooting out the bad actors within the illegitimate government. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. You have this illegitimate government in place, right? You have Biden, you have his Department of Justice, you have his FBI, his CIA, his court-appointed judges, all of that stuff, right? Not everybody in that administration or in any of those branches that I just mentioned, not every single one of them are aware that Biden is an illegitimate president and they're operating under an illegitimate government. Not everybody is aware of that. There's probably on that side less than 10 people that actually know that this is a sham. Everything that's happening is a sham. It aggravates me because even though it is illegitimate and even though that is the case and we are going through all this bullshit, it's still happening in real time, right? It's not like we could pause, delete, backspace, and go back to the moment when it started. You can't do that. But the way that I equate this is like a casualty of war. When you're in war, you have casualties. There's no doubt that you have casualties when you're in a war. There's no denying it and there's no doubting it. The only thing that you could do is try to limit the casualties, mitigate the damages, and hopefully survive. We have been led through 4 years of humiliation as a country, decimation in terms of our economy. Although we've been shouting at the top of our lungs as the people for someone to do something, nothing seemingly has happened. And what happened last week with Trump being convicted of all these felonies makes us feel even worse in many ways. But you have to remember something. The things that you see with your own eyes, and I know it's hard to not trust your own eyes. You see something, you hear something with your ears, with your eyes, your brain processes it, and it's hard to say, oh, well, yeah, that's not really happening. But the bottom line is, and the truth of the matter, is that what people are seeing, is this bothering you? It's not that easy. Oh, look at that. That's bad, huh? Better? I'm so stupid. I don't know why. I didn't even notice the glare. Everybody's commenting on it in the chat. Anyway, what you have to realize is this type of event, this type of scenario, this type of plan, continuity of government, devolution, has never happened before. No one's ever done this. There's no precedent. It's the first time any of this has ever happened. So when you say, "Oh, well, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look, legitimate. This is weird. Like this is." Yeah, because it's never happened. Of course it's weird. The first time anything ever happens, it's going to be a little weird. And that's exactly where we're at now. So when you see Trump being convicted of 34 felonies, this is nothing but the legitimate government, Donald Trump's government, with his cabinet, with his secondary White House, which is Mar-a-Lago, with his Department of Justice, with his Secretary of State, with his FBI. You know a lot of people that are in that government. Kash Patel's in that government. You have some of the people that are very, very close to Trump that had taken Trump's side right after the election fraud. Ron DeSantis. Hold on, let me text him. You have Ron DeSantis. You have I'm not going to name every General Flynn. You have all these people who took Trump's side and the white hat side very, very early on. And they've never wavered from that side. Lynn Wood. And while all these things are happening on the television, and CNN covered every single day of the trial, of course they did. It's the only way they can get ratings is if they cover Trump. So Trump on trial, boom, let's advertise this, it's just ridiculous. Trump is literally exposing to the public, in the only manner that the public is going to understand how bad things really are. And it's very unfortunate for us. It's unfortunate for us that lost loved ones in this mess due to anxiety, due to stress, due to lost jobs, lost wages, financial turmoil, financial distress, COVID, the vaccine, complications from the vaccine. So many different things we could point to with this past 4 years and say, oh, well, if Trump had just stayed in office, none of that would have happened. But guess what? If Trump had just stayed in office, the same exact thing would have happened anyway in 2024, because the cabal would have installed another president in 2024. And all that happened was it would be everything that started in 2020 would have been delayed until 2024. So there's no way that you could sit there and say, oh, well, I wish this nightmare would be over. Well, it could be over. We could have ended it already. The White Hats could have ended it already. And had they done that, we would have been in the same exact position in 2024, because we never would have won the election in 2024. It would have never happened. It would have just been more of the same. You would have had 8 years of Trump, great period, right? Everything was great. And then it just disappears, and then we're back to where we were. So we had a great 8 years, and then the next 20, 30, 50 years are turmoil. It had to happen this way. It's the only way that it could have happened. It's the only way that the ultimate goal and the ultimate sacrifice was actually going to fix anything that was wrong with this world. And I'm not just talking about, within the United States. The cabal runs the world. It's not just one cabal president on the top of a government in the United States. It's cabal presidency across the map. It's big corporate. It's big pharma. It's the manipulation of the stock market. It's the manipulation of the metals market. There's so many things that are wrong with society, and the only way for this to happen was the way that it happened. And unfortunately, it's just how it is. So what you saw last week with Trump's conviction was exactly what Trump said it was, a sham trial. It wasn't even real. Look at some of the illegal advice and direction that the judge in that trial gave to the jury. It's illegal. Trump's convictions convictions, right? Because again, this is just a game. It's just a story. It's just to show the public who are watching the news, who don't watch truthers like me, who don't know about the Great Awakening, who don't know about the plan, all those people that are still just completely either half asleep or completely asleep. It's all for them to see and get exposed to what the cabal is actually doing. So on appeal, if this were a real case, right, and this was a real conviction, on appeal, the case gets thrown out. It immediately gets thrown out. The judge was not only compromised in the trial, but the judge gave a legal direction to the jury. Every single count would be dismissed on appeal immediately. But that's not even important. It doesn't even matter how they end up playing that out. I got news for you. Put your listening ears on. If you think that the reaction and how you felt when you saw the felony convictions, if you think that that was bad, wait until he gets sentenced to jail. Because I'm telling you right now, that's exactly what's going to happen. They are literally going to try to throw him in jail. The sentence is going to come down, and he's going to get jail time. And I told you guys, I don't know how long each of you have been following me, whether it's 3 months, 3 years, 3 weeks, 3 days. I had a live just last month, and it was called The Event. If you haven't watched it, you should probably go back and watch it. Because what I mentioned in that live, we're living through right now. It was in that live, and I think the live even before that, maybe the one right before that one, where I said there needs to be an event. There has to be an event that changes the public perception of what's happening, meaning Trump's on trial, Trump is, campaign, Trump is election, he's talking about the election, he's doing all this stuff. There has to be a very strong line in the sand, line of demarcation that veers us off the path of what everybody is seeing publicly, the public-facing story, so to speak. Everybody that's seeing that, there has to be a switch. And the only way to switch that perception, the only way to switch that pathway is there to be a very jaw-dropping gut punch to not only Trump, but to the United States, and for that matter, the world. Because what's happening here is the white hats are running this show, and they are showing the public how a Department of Justice, a White House, in many cases Congress, and in some cases the Supreme Court have all been corrupted to the point where Trump is being politically assassinated by his political opponents. Not because of crimes, but because of he's running for president. The main reason why he's going through all this is because he's a candidate against the cabal. And the white hats are pulling those strings like puppeteers, and they're making everybody watch it, and they're making everybody buy into it. And honestly, they are doing a fantastic job. Why? Because I personally know people, and you guys are mostly wide awake. So you see when that verdict came down, your smile went up, right? You weren't nervous at all, because most of you know what's going on. Most of you could tell when there's a line of bullshit being given, right? But some of you, based on the comments that I saw on Telegram, I was very quiet, obviously, for the last couple of weeks. I haven't been posting much. Some of that had to do with my personal life, but a lot of it had to do with a gag. I mean, I was literally told, hey, we got a big thing going on here. I'm paraphrasing. Hey, we got a big thing going on here. We don't want too many people to know about it. So watch what you say and watch what you post. I said, okay. And that's what I'll do. So that's the first time, by the way, that I was ever given that directive in that manner. I've been told to watch what I say on lives and maybe not hold a live, but I've never been told watch what you post. Telegram has always been something that I post to daily, that people get daily updates from. And it's never been watch what you do on there. You know what I mean? So that was a first. So I knew something big was coming. And it made total sense with the intel that I was given in weeks prior that said, hey, there's going to be a line of demarcation. There's going to be something very, very big that happens that forces military action. And that event is going to be Donald Trump getting sentenced to prison. And I think you really need to brace yourself for that happening, because I think his sentencing date is July 11th, if I saw right. I don't even know when it is, so don't quote me on that exact day. But on July 11th, or whenever his sentencing day is for these 34 felonies, you are going to hear that he got sentenced to jail, and you're going to panic. Well, you shouldn't panic, because you're here listening to me with your ears, right? You hear me? It's supposed to happen. We need him to be sentenced to jail. We can't go through this whole process, get him convicted of all these felonies, and then he just gets away with it, right? So what do you think is the actual plan here? He gets sentenced to jail and he goes to jail? And he runs for president from jail? Technically, you could do that. And if he wins, then what? He's still in jail? Does he pardon himself? What happens? So is that how it's going to go? He's going to get sentenced to jail, and he's going to go to jail, and what? Biden wins again? Or whoever the candidate is wins, because there's no Republican candidate? What happens then? That's not a pathway. Okay, so that's not going to happen. How about he doesn't get sentenced to jail? So what does he get sentenced to? House arrest? Probation? For 34 felonies? You know Al Capone, former gangster, big-time gangster? You know he only ever had 15 felonies? Trump has 34. So there's no way that these crimes don't carry jail time. They do. And he's going to get sentenced. Then what? That's the obvious question, right? What happens after he gets sentenced to jail? Well, you guys have been asking for it for years. You've been telling me to flip the switch, hit the button, pull the strings, go take over, whatever. You're going to hear the EBS. You're going to hear the EBS, and you're going to see the military stop this. How they're going to do it, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what that next step is, but I do know that that's when all will be revealed. And I told you it has to happen sometime in the summer, because the November election is creeping up on us. You look down, it's June of 2024. The friggin' election is in 5 months. So there has to be something, an event that finally puts all of the actors on the stage, raises the curtain, no more bullshit. Here's what's been happening. EBS comes on. Trump makes an announcement revealing the Presidential Emergency Action Document, the PED, talks about the executive orders, talks about continuity of government, talks about devolution. There has to be a reveal. There has to be. So the question that has been on every single one of your minds, or at least should have been on every single one of your minds, is how? How do we get to that point? When do we get to that point? We've been waiting and waiting and waiting. You know how many messages I get? You know how many tags I get on Telegram? How many comments I get on Rumble? How many comments I get? We've been waiting, Phil. We've waited. We listen to you nonstop. You're our favorite truther. You're our number one. We hang on your every word. I appreciate that, guys, but I'm not in control of this. Understand that. I have someone that tells me that someone that does have access to those in control. Not that I don't have access, but he has better access. Nonetheless, someone that is closer to the situation feeds me intel. And I pass that intel along when I'm allowed to and when I'm told to. And if I'm restricted, I'm restricted. Regardless of that, I don't control when any of this happens. I can't come in and be like, okay, well, you know what? I'm taking over now. Because let me tell you something. I wouldn't have done it this way. This whole white hat plan where they take over, covertly, and they run the government, they run the United States, they run the world, they rid the cabal behind the scenes, kind of while no one's paying attention. It's happening under your nose, but you don't actually know that it's happening because this whole script is being played out in the mainstream media. Russia invades Ukraine, right? China lands. I just got an alert today that China landed on the far side of the moon. First time anyone's ever landed on the far side of the moon. For the love of God and everything holy. That's what we're talking about. So all of this distraction happening in the mainstream media, right? You had Biden's withdrawal of troops and the Taliban taking over, all the soldiers that died out there, all the equipment that was left out there, all of this stuff happening while the cabal is actually being taken down by the White Hats and by the Trump administration and by the alliance that has formed between the United States, China, and Russia. Those three world powers have become one and have combined their resources, combined their intelligence, and combined their hate for the cabal and their love for humanity and their love for the people into one force. And that's what Trump's capitulation tour was all about in 2017. That's when the alliance was formed. This stuff was happening way before the election fraud. And honestly, if the election fraud didn't happen and Trump and the White Hats didn't get forced to lose the White House, this would have been over years ago. We wouldn't be sitting here today talking about it. I can tell you that right now. We would have implemented NESARA. We would have had free energy. We would have had new humanitarian projects. Our world would be completely different than what it is right now, in a much better way. But there was no way to get there. That's why they had to do it this way. Do I like it? No. But do I know every single detail that they knew when they made the decision to do it this way? No. I don't. And I'm a little bit more competitive. I'm a little bit more passionate. Me and Todd Collins, Todd Father, me and Todd talk about this a lot because we did this with a couple of the companies that we started. You should always crawl, walk, then run, right? You never want to hop into something and just run because you're going to fall flat on your face if you don't know what you're doing, right? I am constantly running before I'm walking, and I'm constantly running before I'm crawling. I don't do that shit. Like let's go. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to wait for this and wait for that. If I can get it now, I want it now. I don't want to wait. If it makes strategic sense to wait, then I'll consider it, but I still don't want to do it. So having somebody like me at those tables conversing with the White Hats, trying to tell them, screw that, let's just go anyway. That's not the greatest plan, honestly. So someone like me shouldn't be in charge of those decisions, or anybody that doesn't have the right mindset and the overall goal in mind, they shouldn't be making those decisions either. So, and it's funny too, I forgot to mention this, but I'll say it now. When you look at the signs, when you look at the little comms that are injected into this script, into this movie that we've been watching. We've been talking about watching the movie, popcorn stale. Yeah, I get it. But if you look at the little things that were injected into this story, just to tip the hat, so to speak, to the Anons, to the Great Awakening, And to the true supporters of Trump, not just the MAGA movement, but the Anon movement, the Q movement, and everything else. If you look at specifically the amount of felonies that Trump was convicted of, 34, right? 34. Now, in a fake made-up trial designed to only fool the mainstream media and the people watching the mainstream media and the general population for that matter, because we could have 20, 30, 40 million people watching me. There's still many other people that don't, right? So all of those other people are either watching the show, watching the movie unfold and believing it, or hearing it from somebody else, gossip. $200 million was raised for Trump after the verdict. So enough people know about the verdict. So you have to look at the little things sometimes to get confirmation of the things that are coming out of my mouth and the signs that Trump is trying to send to you and that the white hats are trying to send to you and send to us. And one of those signs is the number of felonies. This is a sham trial, not in the sense that Trump's trying to make it seem. It's not even real in that kind of sense. Like, it's not a real trial. It's just literally a play. It's like a movie. It's a script. And it's designed to show you how bad things really are. So when you look at little things like the number of felonies, 34, out of all the numbers that they could have invented, right? Could have did 17, sure. Well, it just so happens that 34 is double 17. So let's talk about that. But also, if you look at Q drop, number 34, Q drop 34. Let me read it. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it now. I'm not going to put it on the screen because I'm a little weary of the internet here in Jamaica, and I don't want to disrupt the good flow that we have going on. This is Q drop number 34. It was posted on November 1st of 2017. I'll read it to you. My fellow Americans, over the course of the next several days, you will undoubtedly realize that we are taking back our great country, the land of the free, from the evil tyrants that wish to do us harm and destroy the remaining refuge of shining light. On POTUS's order, we have initiated certain fail-safes that shall safeguard the public from the primary fallout, which is slated to occur 11.3 upon the arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta, actionable 11.4. Confirmation to the public of what is occurring will then be revealed and will not be openly accepted. Public riots are being organized in serious numbers in an effort to prevent the arrest and capture of more senior public officials. On POTUS's order, a state of temporary military control will be actioned and special ops carried out. False leaks have been made to retain several within the confines of the United States to prevent extradition and special operator necessity. Rest assured, the safety and well-being of every man, woman, and child of this country is being exhausted in full. However, the atmosphere within the country will unfortunately be divided, as so many have fallen for the corrupt and evil narrative that has long been broadcast. We will be initiating the emergency broadcast system during this time in an effort to provide a direct message avoiding the fake news to all citizens. Organizations and/or people that wish to do us harm during this time will be met with swift fury. Certain laws have been pre-lifted to provide our great military the necessary authority to handle and conduct these operations at home and abroad. Now, that was drop 34. Couple weird things about that. Why wasn't it drop number 1? Because doesn't it sound like things are kicking off? Shouldn't that be the very first drop? Why is it 34? Why were there 33 Q drops prior to that drop? Is that weird? Because to me, it's weird. I think that should have been the very first drop that kicks things off, that really say, hey, I'm Q. He signed himself Q clearance patriot. Not Q, it just evolved to Q later on, or devolved to Q later on. But Q drop number 34 says all of that. And if you take those words that I just read that are written, you could look up the Q drops. You go to qalerts.app, I think it is. Yeah, Q alerts, all one word, Q alert, that's a letter Q, alerts.app, A-P-P. And you could search every single drop that's ever been made from there. You could organize them, you could search for words, you could look at numbers, whatever. Drop number 34 out of all the drops, and if you take those words and put it into the current situation that we're in, with Trump being convicted of no less than 34 felonies, it fits. It fits perfectly. It fits like the final puzzle piece of a puzzle. And this is exactly what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for that event that kicks things off. We've been waiting for that event that turns the pathway down the pathway that we've all been on, that we've been watching, that my intel has been referring to, that other truthers have been talking about. The pathway of November 2024, vote for Trump, blah, blah, blah. That's the bullshit pathway. That's the one that they want you distracted on. That's the road of distraction. What's actually happening, this covert operation that's been happening since 2016, really, this operation has been happening behind the scenes, and only people that listen to people like me know about it, which boggles my mind, but it's true. That's how clandestine, and that's how serious this operation is. They didn't want anyone to know about it. Just a few people. A few people kind of grew out of a few people. I think they were comfortable, with 1 million or 2. But I'm so charming and handsome that I can't help. Like, if tens of millions of people end up following me, what do you want me to do about it? I mean, you could have picked some other guy. You could have had Sather do all this stuff, Jordan Sather, or Nick Alvear for that matter. Only a couple people would have followed them, tens of people. So the writing is everywhere. The comms are everywhere. And this is what we've been waiting for. This is what changes everything. This is what gets the movie to not only conclusion, but what gets the movie to turn the way of conclusion. We're not even pointing in conclusion's direction right now. Trump's getting convicted of felonies. Trump's getting sentenced to jail time. How is that conclusion in any way? It's not. So we have to have an event that turns it, and you're in the middle of the event. You just saw the conviction. Now you're going to see the sentencing where you get sentenced to jail, and then you're going to see an eruption. You're going to see the pot finally boiling over. I've been talking about that damn pot for 4 years now. Crazy, 4 years. And one thing I like that has happened, you could talk about all of the bad things that have happened over the last 4 years, but think about the good things that have happened, right? How many people have you met that you otherwise wouldn't have met if everything remained, status quo? How many people have you met that are now in your life that you call a friend or even a family member with a PH, right? How many things do you know that you've learned from me or from someone else in the last 4 years that you didn't know? How many of you have precious metals in your possession or have rolled over your retirement account out of the stock market and into metals? How many of you are in a better position for not only your future, but your family's future? When you're long gone and in heaven, did you make moves that have put your family in a better position? I bet you have. I bet you've signed up for some of my companies and you have extra income. I bet you've signed up and rolled over accounts into precious metals through goldquiz.com. I'm sure that you guys have done all that, or you've tried your hardest to at least take part in it. And you wouldn't have done that otherwise if it didn't shake out this way. So for all the bad that's happened, we should look at the good too, right? I mean, if you just want to constantly focus on the bad and just be a Debbie Downer all day long, that's your prerogative. No one's going to stop you. But they are going to push you away, because the things that you're saying, those negative things, are not only negative, but people don't want to hear that, number one. And number two, that's not what's actually happening. And I know it's weird. I know it's weird to say, okay, I accept that there is a shadow government and a shadow presidency and this controlling entity that we're unaware of, the public, the general public is unaware of. I understand that that's happening, and I don't believe what I see on the television and on the mainstream media reporting. It's a really weird thing to have to say, to have to admit to. I get it. But listen, we are in a really weird world. You shouldn't be surprised that weird things are happening. You shouldn't be surprised that, first of all, whether you think Trump is operating a shadow government and this whole trial and the conviction is one big, psyop, basically, to distract and educate and expose the cabal, whether you think that's true or not, none of you could deny that the world is run by a cabal, right? How could you deny that? There are people that run a world government and that pull the strings all over the place. They control the stock markets. They control the metals markets. They control governments. Their people are at the top of every government. They're at the top of every pharmaceutical. They're CEOs of the largest corporations. There is a cabal, right? Now, what's the hierarchy of the cabal? Who's on their board? Where do they meet? Are there announcements? Do they have a website? Are they in the mainstream media? Does Jacob the Rothschild come out every year with an annual report of expenses? Are there elected officials? Do they have term limits? What paperwork could we find through the Freedom of Information Act? Could we pull out any of that stuff? No. You know why? Because they've been doing it in secret for 200 years. There's been a cabal running the world for 200 years. Yet you don't think there could be a shadow government in place of the United States and a secret alliance among world powers against the cabal? So you'll admit that there's a cabal, and you'll admit that there's these evil beings, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the JP Morgan, and the Bushes, Prescott Bush, and all that. You'll admit that that's all not only possible, not only probable, but almost definitive. You'll admit to that, but you won't admit and acknowledge that there could possibly be a good group that's fighting that evil? Is that not hypocritical? How could you believe in the cabal and not believe that there's a white hat group, a world alliance, a shadow government? You can't have it both ways. You can't think that there's a cabal and then not think that there's a good force fighting the cabal on the behalf of the people. So you have to get that in your mind. You have to get it in your mind that the world is not what we see. The only way to find the truth in what's happening in the world is to dig and to research and to sit in front of your computer screens or your device and listen to people like me who just so happen to be able to talk about this stuff on a broadcast. Everyone should be cautiously optimistic. And when I say that, not because of an uncertainty of what will happen next. Cautiously, in the sense that people, when Trump does get sentenced to jail, people are going to feel like you just got punched right in your stomach. And it's going to feel nasty. Even if you know what's happening, what's really happening based on what I just told you tonight, even if you know all that, it's still going to feel really shitty. And there's not much that you could do about that. But you have to be strong. You have to be strong mentally. You have to be strong physically. And you can't cower. And you can't bring yourself down to a mental level that allows the fakeness of the world to get into your mind. Your mind has to be bulletproof. It really does. You have to put your big boy pants on, your big girl pants on, and trust that there is a plan, it is in place, and it's unfolding right now. You have to trust it. I've prepared everyone for this exact moment. Even in my most recent live streams, I was talking about an event that needs to occur, that will occur over the summer. I said it has to happen by June or July. And here we are in June or July, and it's happening. So we're okay. We're going to be okay. We're right where we need to be. Everything so far, although there have been some turns and some different pathways taken than I think the White Hats originally wanted there to be, and the public, even those that are awake like us, that we wanted. But we've stayed resilient, we've survived, we're here, and now we wait for the end. And I think all of us are prepared for the end. And it only gets better from here, other than the gut punch when you hear Trump's going to jail. I guarantee you he will never go to jail, no matter what, because it's just not real. They're not real charges. It wasn't a real trial. It wasn't a real sentencing, and it won't be real jail time or conviction, and it won't be real sentencing. So everybody bring it down to a level anxiety, a zero anxiety level. Everybody relax. There's going to be many good things that come in the future. And we're going to have a front row seat for it. I'm really excited about having that front row seat. I'm really excited about having a voice while this is all happening, because you guys are all going to flock to me, I'm sure. And I'll be here. I'll be here for it. So we're going to skip the Q&A tonight. My next live, I'll hold a full Q&A, and I'm actually going to take topics for the Q&A so we could keep, I'm going to make topics that I want you guys to ask me questions on. Maybe we'll even vote on them on Telegram or Locals or something like that. So it'll be a very structured Q&A. It won't just be a random Q&A. Hey, what's going on with the Nick Alvear case? There's crap like that you guys don't want to hear about. It'll be very structured. And that'll be on my next live, which will be a little bit later this week. We'll have more time for it. Right now, it's just going to be an off-the-cuff Q&A if I do it, and I don't think it's going to have any structure to it. So take the information I gave you tonight, rewatch the live if that helps, share this live, take the link to the Rumble live, put it on all your social media. I think people need to hear what I said tonight. I think it'll set a lot of minds at ease. I think it'll put everybody in the right mindset about what happens next. And I think it's necessary for as many people to see this live as possible. So spread this link around as much as you could. Next live stream, we will have a full Q&A. It'll be a structured Q&A. And I think you guys are going to like that one too. So thanks for tuning in. Sorry about my absence. We had an enormous audience tonight. We almost hit 40 million again. Really, really proud of that. And I'm really honored to have those numbers and to have that many people watching me. You guys are absolutely the best, and I never take you guys for granted. Trust me, I know how lucky I am, and I know the position that I'm in is due completely to everybody, to all of my viewers. So thank you so much, and I will see you. Be on the lookout for a live announcement probably tomorrow. I'll let you know when the next one's going to be, and I'll also put up the voting for the topics. We'll do that within the next day or two as well. Have a good night, guys. Love you all.